Hi everyone, I'm Kate and we're here today with your second nature break. I've got Delaney with us again and we're going to talk about some more wildflowers. So Delaney, what wildflowers do we have on the books today?
Well, today we have Partridge Pea and Prairie Dock, which are two more prairie plants that we're going to be discussing while they're still in bloom.
Awesome. So we're going to go ahead and get into Delaney's presentation for you guys and hopefully you'll learn a little something fun today and enjoy this nature break.
Alrighty, guys. So our first plant that we're going to discuss is Partridge Pea. This is a pretty common plant. You may or may not have seen it actually on the side of the road while you're driving, or on the highway, or getting off and on the exits. In Bowling Green, it's actually pretty much everywhere in that area because it seeds very well in disturbed ground, and it works very well for erosion control. Now, Partridge Pea is an excellent pollinator plant. It produces a lot of nectar, and a lot of bees really need that. It's considered a important honey plant. Now, the interesting thing though is that the plant itself, where it produces the nectar, is not the bloom. It's actually on the base of the leaves, right where it attaches to the stem. Now, it is a legume, which means that it's in the pea family, and it has these lovely little leaves right here, and it's also known as the sensitive plant because those leaves will actually close together and fold at nighttime. And since it is a legume, it fixes nitrogen. So it's considered very important for the environments that it's in because it will put nitrogen back in the soil, which is usually very needed. Now it can grow about 1 to 3 feet tall, and it does produce these lovely little seed pods that will turn brown when they are considered ripe, and they will eventually burst open at the seams, kind of like a sweet pea or a green bean or something like that, and the seed pod will actually curl and allow those seeds to spray off. Now, this is a very, very important plant for a number of reasons, but really quick, we're going to show this little video of it that I have from one of the ones in the prairie. You can see these beautiful blooms. They're just really lovely.
Yeah, Delaney, do you know anything about the pollinators? I'm just curious since they have pollen in a different way.
Mm-hmm. Well, the pollination occurs very easily, just like most other plants that produce a bloom. The bees will land on the flower. They'll actually get the pollen because they do need pollen for their honey process. A lot of people don't know that, but pollen is necessary for creating honey. They do collect it for that reason. So they will collect the pollen from the actual flower, and then they will get the honey or the nectar, which will turn into the honey. They'll get that from the actual stem of the plant.
Awesome.
It's mostly bees that pollinate from it, but it does have some other interesting insects that like to use it, and we'll get to that.
Hmm.
But our first most important critter that loves to use this plant for food is actually the northern bobwhite. It's a very important plant in their diet in the wintertime. It is very high protein and very digestible, so it is really honestly very important for them for actually surviving through the winter. It not only it benefits game fowl like the bobwhite, but also benefits songbirds and other fowl like ducks. It actually produces very dense stands that work very well as cover. But one of the songbirds that does actually benefit is the eastern meadowlark, which is a really gorgeous bird if you ever get a chance to see one. Now, it's important for butterflies, not necessarily because of the nectar, but because it's a host plant. It is a host plant for two different species, the sleepy orange that you see here, and the orange sulfur butterfly. So it's pretty cool all the way around. It's really easy to grow. It's an annual, so it'll eventually die back during the wintertime, but it reseeds pretty easily, and it is not super competitive. So it won't take over your garden. It actually tends to keep to itself pretty well. So it's a really cool plant.
Yeah, that's great.
Alrighty, so our next plant is known as prairie dock. Now this one is one that a lot of people might not be familiar with, and it's because it's a very unusual plant in the idea that it has a basal form where it has the leaves at the bottom of the plant, and then eventually it sends off a very, very long stalk that can grow almost 8 feet tall. And here's the picture of one of them in the prairie. It's huge, beautiful plant. And you can see actually me taking a picture of myself. You see the top of my head. And I'm about 5'6", if that gives you an idea of how tall this plant is. Now, prairie dock isn't necessarily important to other wildlife or even people for that matter. It's important for other reasons. But first, here's a video of our beautiful prairie dock out in the prairie, all the way up to the top. Gives you a good idea just how tall this plant is. It's pretty spectacular.
Wow.
There we go. But it is not really important for people. It's important for a different reason. It has a lot to do with what it's known for. It's also known as rosinweed, and it's more a benefit to pollinators, like you see here with that little skipper and our solitary bee. The main reason is because it produces a lot of resin. The specific epithet that it has for its scientific name is silphium, which is a reference to the ancient Greek plant that used to be harvested for resin, used mostly for incense and that sort of thing. But it's important for bees. It's very important for bees. They use it for propolis, which is a kind of a resiny, sticky structure. It's often known as bee glue because bees use it to patch holes in the hive. They use it to fix honey, or not honey, excuse me. They use it to fix honeycomb that's broken. They have even been known to actually cover dead animals that end up in the hive, like mice, in it because it has antibacterial properties to it, which is why a lot of people actually like to use it for that reason. And a lot of medicine at home. I mean, of course, you should check with your doctor before you start bee glue for medicine. But
No, we're not doctors here.
no,
But
really not. I prefer to leave it for the bees. You know, they're struggling enough as it is. So, but it's extraordinarily important for that because it is a prairie plant that produces resin, and there are specific bee species that live only in prairie regions. So there's not a lot of trees necessarily, or pine trees or plants that produce a lot of resin naturally in those ecosystems. So it's a pretty cool plant. Another really fun side fact for it is actually there is thought that it is the longest lived plant in the prairie. It needs more research, but to give you an idea how long that could be, big blue stem, which is one of my favorite grasses in the prairie, it actually can live to be over 200 years old. So the idea that prairie dot could live to be older than that is exciting. It also produces a lot of energy and stores it in its roots, and its roots are incredibly deep. So even if it's mowed over, it will usually grow back the next year because it stores so much in its roots. So it's a pretty neat plant. If you're using it in the garden, I highly suggest full sun and putting it in the background because those stalks grow so tall, it towers over everything. But it makes a really beautiful landscaping plant if used correctly.
yeah,
And
that's amazing. And you'll have it for generations.
exactly, it'll outlive you. That's about all I've got for you today, Kate.
Okay, awesome. Well, that kind of concludes what we've got for you all today. Thank you so much for joining us for our second ever nature break. And we look forward to having you for our next one.
Yeah,
Have a great day.
bye.
Bye.